In all the changes to which you may be invited, remember that time and habit are at least as necessary to fix the true character of governments as of other human institutions, that experience is the surest standard by which to test the real tendency of the existing constitution of a country, and that felicity in changes, upon the credit of mere hypothesis and opinion, exposes to perpetual change from the endless variety of hypothesis and opinion. And remember especially that for the efficient management of your common interests in a country so extensive as ours, a government of as much vigor as is consistent with the perfect security of liberty is indispensable. Liberty itself will find in such a government, with powers properly distributed and adjusted, its surest guardian. It is indeed little else than a name where the government is too feeble to withstand the enterprises of faction, to confine each member of the society within the limits prescribed by the laws, and to maintain in the secure and tranquil enjoyment of the rights of persons and property. I have already intimated to you the dangers of parties in the state, with particular references to the founding of them on geographical discriminations. Let me now take a more comprehensive view and warn you in the most solemn manner against the baneful effects of the spirit of party generally. This spirit, unfortunately, is inseparable from our nature, having its root in the strongest passions of the human mind. It exists under different shapes in all governments, more or less stifled, controlled, or repressed. But in those of the popular form, it is seen in its greatest rankness and is truly their worst enemy. The alternate domination of one faction over another, sharpened by the spirit of revenge, natural to party dissension, which in different ages and countries has perpetuated the most horrid enormities, is itself a frightful despotism. But this leads at length to a more formal and permanent despotism. The disorders and miseries which result gradually incline the minds of men to seek security and repose in the absolute power of an individual. And sooner or later, the chief of some prevailing faction, more able or more fortunate than his competitors, turns this disposition to the purpose of his own elevation on the ruins of public liberty. Without looking forward to an extremity of this kind, which nevertheless ought not to be entirely out of sight, the common and continual mischiefs of the spirit of party are sufficient to make it the interest and the duty of wise people to discourage and to restrain it. It serves always to distract the public councils and enfeeble the public administration. It agitates the community with ill-founded jealousies and false alarms, kindles the animosity of one party against another, foments occasional riot and insurrection. It opens the door to foreign influence and corruption, which finds a facilitated access to the government itself through the channels of party passions. Thus, the policy and the will of one country are subjected to the policy and will of another. There is an opinion that parties in free countries are useful checks upon the administration of the government and serve to keep alive the spirit of liberty. This, within certain limits, is probably true, and in governments of a monarchical caste, patriotism may look with indulgence, if not favor, upon the spirit of party. But in those of the popular character, in governments purely elective, it is a spirit not to be encouraged. From their natural tendency, it is certain there will always be enough of that spirit for every salutary purpose. And there being constant danger of excess, the effort ought to be, by force of public opinion, to mitigate and assuage it. A fire not to be quenched, it demands a uniform vigilance to prevent it burning into a flame, lest instead of warming, it should consume.
The men behind the legends. Washington is a name that rings throughout the generations. His name is our capital, and his actions are a blueprint. George Washington was a man for the ages. He served his nation with honor and dignity as a founding father, commander of the Continental Army, and the first president of the United States. He left his mark by his bravery in the battlefield, diligence and restraint in civic office, and his wisdom in choosing to retire from public life instead of serving endless terms. Born the 22nd day of February in the year 1732 in Westmoreland County, Virginia, Washington was born in a distinguished family, headed by his father Augustine Washington and mother Mary Ball Washington. Sadly, when young George Washington was only 11, his father passed away, and quickly George faced more responsibilities in running his family plantation. While widely believed to have finished formal education at around the age of 15, Washington developed a love of mathematics and became a surveyor, just like his father. The expeditions into Virginia's western wilderness earned him enough money to acquire land for himself. In December 1752, George Washington began his military career as a commander of the Virginia militia, fighting under the British Crown. During his short tenure in the Virginia militia in 1754, George Washington found himself in active combat in the French and Indian War. His tenure concluded when he resigned his commission by 1759. After resigning his commission, Washington returned to Mount Vernon, where he would begin his political career with election to the Virginia House of Burgesses, serving until 1774. George Washington served as a soldier, a surveyor, and a local leader. All of his past experiences, including the successes and his failures, equipped him with the necessary tools to lead a Continental Army against the mighty British Empire. George Washington had first-hand experience in how the British Empire operated, and possessed knowledge of the territories he sought to defend, thanks to his time as a surveyor. While Washington was not a perfect commander of the Continental Armies, he was the right man for the job, helping turn an unprofessional militia into a true 18th century army. George Washington then went on to serve as the first president of the United States after the Constitutional Convention. As president, George Washington successfully laid out what the presidency should, in practice, be in relation to the other branches of government and to the peoples and states of the Union. He set in place important precedents, such as relying on the cabinet, utilizing the presidential veto, and asserting executive privilege in diplomatic affairs. Washington also went on to establish the tradition of a 2-term limit for the presidency and worked tirelessly to maintain national unity, prioritizing neutrality in foreign conflicts, and building financial stability at home. From serving as commander of the Continental Armies, First President of the United States, and establishing important precedents in office like a formal cabinet, Washington was an irreplaceable leader in the American Revolution and the early Republic. The man behind the legend was not perfect and faced many obstacles and personal flaws, but he never let them define or stop him.